Strongman season is in full swing, and as you know on this channel we love the history and stats of the strongman sport. So today we're taking a look at the top 10 athletes that have won the most events at the World's Strongest Man. So Auntie Liz, we've had a few people asking for this type of video.
Yeah, it was after the Brian and Mark video that we did last week because we were just looking at their history and I went into their event wins because they are both on this list and people wanted to hear more about it. So I've thrown in some extra stats for good measure as well because we do love a good stat on this channel.
We love hearing all about Auntie Liz's stats. So without further ado, let's dive into it.
Starting off then, there's actually 11 men in this top 10 because we have a tie for 10th place. And that's between Janne Virtanen and Eddie Hall, who have both won 21 events in total at the World's Strongest Man. So we'll have a look at Janne first. Now, he competed at the World's Strongest Man a total of 9 times and he won in the year 2000. Over the course of his career at Worlds, he did 77 events, which gives him a win rate of 27%.
I remember watching Janne and I was lucky enough to meet him at my first ever World's Strongest Man. Nice. So cool to see Janne on this list. He's not someone that's like heavily involved in the sport anymore. We don't really hear from him, but hell of an athlete and nice to see him on this list.
So I also wanted to see what produced the most wins for the athletes. What was their most winning event at Worlds? And for Janne, it was the carry and drag. But he was so athletic, he was really good at all moving events. So things like the Husafell Stone and the Conan Circle. And his 2 worst events were the Hercules Hold and the Car Deadlift Hold, which I haven't seen at Worlds. Actually, no, they did it a few years ago, didn't they? So tied with Janne is obviously Eddie Hall. Now, Eddie appeared at World's Strongest Man 6 times in total, winning the competition in 2017. So Eddie took part in 59 events over those 6 years, so winning 21 gives him a win rate of 35%, which is very good, I must say.
Auntie Liz, this is the top 10 winning most athletes. Of course it's good.
No, but 35%, I'm going to do comparisons at the end of everyone's win rates and stuff like that. And you'll see where they stack up against each other.
Okay, cool.
I do think it's interesting. So unsurprisingly, Eddie's best event at World's Strongest Man was the deadlift, which he won 5 times. But he also placed first on the squat 4 times and the Viking press 4 times. Also unsurprisingly, Eddie lost the most points on the moving events, so the yoke, frame carry, loading race.
Yeah, Eddie's deadlifting, squatting, and particularly Viking press, always extremely impressive. So at number 9, we have Viking power Sven Karlsson. He was 3rd place in 99. He was 2nd place in the year 2000. And then in 2001, he finally got that win. And he's competed at the World's Strongest Man a total of 8 times. So Sven won 23 out of a possible 96 events that he took place in at World's Strongest Man, which gives him a 24% winning record. So Sven excelled in things like the Fingal's Fingers, the Super Yoke he was so well known for, and he was also really good at carry and drag type events as well. And although he didn't really have any big weaknesses, some of his performance just started to slip a little bit as he aged and kept coming back to Worlds, but an unbelievable competitor and one of the best to watch.
So in at number 8, we have Mark Felix, the Miracle Man himself, who so far has taken part in 17 World's Strongest Man competitions, winning 24 events. Now, Mark, as you know, has not won the World's Strongest Man, but his highest placing was 4th in 2006. So during his time at Worlds, Mark has obviously done a fair few events, 113, and winning 24 gives him a win rate of 21%.
How many times has Mark won a deadlift at World's Strongest Man?
I'm about to tell you, Lozzie. Unsurprisingly, Mark's best event at World's Strongest Man has always been the deadlift for reps, which he has won 13 times in total across the groups and finals. And unsurprisingly, also his weakest event, or the event he's lost the most points on, have been the overheads, and that's log, dumbbell, medleys, that kind of thing.
Next up, we have another Brit, the one and only Terry Hollands, who has won 26 events at the World's Strongest Man. Terry's competed at the World's Strongest Man 15 times, and although he never won the competition, he has placed 3rd twice. First in 2007 and once again in 2011. During his 15 years competing at the World's Strongest Man, Terry took part in 142 events, which gives him a winning percentage of 18%.
This is the problem when you make so many finals and you do so many events, it hurts your win rate, Lozzie.
It does a bit, but I'm sure Terry's not going to be disappointed making the final as many times as he did.
I guess. And it's worth pointing out also that even though Mark went to Worlds more than Terry, Terry's made more finals, so he's done more events in total.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Terry went through like a 9-year streak of making
did.
the final. And Terry's best events at World's Strongest Man were events like the truck pull or any type of vehicle pull. One of the absolute best vehicle pullers we've ever seen. And very similar to Mark, his weakest events were more of the pressing type events.
So in at number 6 is the American Phil Pfister, who won a total of 29 events in the 8 years that he competed at the World's Strongest Man. Obviously, Phil won the competition in the year 2006, and he took part in a total of 95 events. So 29 wins gives him a win rate of 30%.
And another interesting fact, just to add in there, Phil Pfister and Yanni Virtanen both competed in their last World's Strongest Man, the year that myself and Brian Shaw competed in our first.
Oh, there you are. Nice little factoid, Leslie. Phil's best events at Worlds were the Atlas Stones and Fingal's Fingers, and one event that he consistently scored a bit lower on was the deadlift.
So now we're into top 5 territory, and we have Swedish legend Magnus Samuelsson, who competed at World's Strongest Man an incredible 13 times, and across those 13 competitions he took 43 event wins. During that time, Magnus competed in 142 events, which interestingly is the same as Terry Holland's, but Magnus comes out with a 30% win rate. Magnus's best events at World's Strongest Man were things like the arm over arm, Atlas Stones, and although surprisingly good at log lift for reps, it was the static events where he lost the most points.
So in at number 4 with 45 event wins is Hathor Bjornsson, who competed at Worlds a total of 9 times, winning the competition in 2018. Now, Thor made the final every time he competed at Worlds, and he's one of just 2 men on our list to do so. And he did a total of 104 events at the World's Strongest Man, which gives him a very impressive win rate of 43%. Now, you know, sometimes I go down a rabbit hole. I became a bit fixated on Thor's World's Strongest Man career, and I started looking at his second places as well. And he's got 21 second place event finishes. So I added that to his first place finishes, and he has a top 2 win rate of 63%. So he placed either first or second 63% of the time.
That's quite incredible.
Yes, it is. Now, Thor's best events at Worlds, first off was the Atlas Stones, which he won 9 times. Loading race, he won 8 times. And truck pull, he won 7 times. And I looked for his weaknesses, but he didn't really have any. I mean, he only placed last on an event on 2 occasions, but a bad result for him was maybe mid-pack, and there's no glaring weakness with Thor.
That's why he was on the podium so many times.
Yes, exactly. And it's the same case with a few guys further down the list too.
Top 3 time now, and we have Mariusz Pudzianowski, 5-time winner of the World's Strongest Man. Mariusz won 46 events the 9 times he competed at World's Strongest Man, and just like Thor, he made the final every single time. He took part in 123 events, which means he's got a win rate of 37%. And just like Thor, Auntie Liz looked into his second place finishes, which incredibly was 40 times he placed second at World's Strongest Man, which gives him a top 2 percentage of 70%.
70% of events he was either 1 or 2.
This is why he's the dominator and a 5-time winner of the competition. So a man that finishes top 2 70% of the time is obviously doesn't really have many weaknesses. But Mariusz really excelled with things like the Atlas Stones, truck pulls, farmer's walk, loading events, power stairs. There really was no weakness for this man.
You could literally reel off all the events.
Deadlift for reps.
Anything for reps. He loved a rep.
He wasn't so good at max weight lifting, but when it came to repetitions, he was unbelievable.
Now, is it even a top 10 list if Zydrunas isn't on it? And of course he's on it. He's in at number 2, having won 54 events the 14 times he competed at the World's Strongest Man. So Zydrunas obviously won the competition 4 times, but he took part in an incredible 161 events over those 14 years, which gives him a win rate of 33%. When we add on his 36 second place finishes, he has a top 2 percentage of 55%. And just like Mariusz and Thor, Zydrunas didn't have any glaring weaknesses at World's Strongest Man. You don't become the GOAT of the sport having huge weaknesses. But his best events at Worlds were the truck pull, squat for reps, and obviously any overhead.
And finally, it's not surprising to see the 4-time winner of the World's Strongest Man topping this list, 59 wins for the one and only Brian Shaw. Brian has made the final 14 out of the 15 times he's competed at the contest so far, completing 167 events across those competitions, the most out of anyone ever. This gives Brian a 35% win rate, and when you add the 35 times he placed second in events at World's Strongest Man, he has an amazing 77% top 2 rate. Brian's best events at Worlds are the deadlift, which he won 10 times, throwing events, which he won 9 times, and truck pulling, which he won 7 times.
There we have it then. Now let's quickly get them up on the screen so you can see this comparison. So this is the guys ordered by event wins, was obviously Brian at the top with 59 event wins. But I thought it would be interesting to order them in different ways too and just play around with things a little bit. So now we've got them on the screen ordered by win percentage, and obviously when you're looking at percentages, actually Thor comes out on top, 43%.
Yeah, real interesting here. You have a mix-up of positionings with Thor and Marius going up to first and second. Eddie Hall actually in there as at third place. That's surprising. You know, we often think of Eddie as just like a static monster, but he's proven he's very good at lots of events. Brian Shaw still in there at top 4. And I think one thing with Brian and Zdrunas, they've almost allowed these kind of numbers to slip down a little bit over the years, even though they've still got the opportunity to add more wins, particularly Brian, he's got 1 more Worlds coming up.
Yeah.
It's also going past your peak almost brings some of those numbers down a little bit, whereas guys like Thor and Eddie both make sure they finished in their prime.
That's the difference. And when I was looking at Zdrunas's numbers, I did think to myself how different his stats could be if he hadn't competed in the last couple of years that he did, and he didn't go with IFSA. Imagine if he stayed over at World's Strongest Man when IFSA split off. I think his numbers would be quite different. Now this is an interesting one. This is looking at everyone's top 2 percentage. So the amount of times that they were either first or second place in an event at Worlds. And what I think this shows is the most consistency for these
Absolutely,
athletes.
and it's very interesting that the top 8 are all World's Strongest Man winners in this case. Obviously, we've got Terry and Mark on there, both incredible strongmen, but never having won the title. And Marius Pudzianowski and Brian Shaw with over 70% or more. Quite incredible.
So you know how I get, and I started to think, oh, I wonder what the stats are for some of, like, you know, the current guys like Tom and Alexei, Martins and Mateusz. So I did theirs too. So let's get them up on the screen. As you can see, they're very similar in terms of the amount of event wins, similar in terms of the amount of appearances as well. Now the big difference is the total events that they've done, because Alexei has only actually made 2 finals at World's Strongest Man, so he's done less events, so his win percentage is very good at 40%. Second places, Martins stands out there because he's someone, he doesn't go and win every event.
We always talk about Martins in that respect. He's so consistent. And yeah, this really shows here. 14 event wins, which is incredible, but 15 second places. Very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, and it gives him a very strong top 2% finish as well. But obviously, Alexei's a standout there because he has actually done far fewer events and he's won a decent amount of them.
We just look back at last year's World's Strongest Man and think how dominant Alexei was until those last couple of events. I think that's probably where the big difference is with Ulysses, is that he doesn't drop out the top 3. It may be interesting to delve even deeper and see, you know, where people are top 3, top 4.
I considered it, but I was starting to go a bit cross-eyed, to be honest. But it is interesting because the year Martins won World's Strongest Man, he only won the last event, the Atlas Stone.
He did indeed. And looking at this, the 4 of them are extremely close in so many areas.
They are.
So it could be really interesting going into this year's World's Strongest Man. Obviously, we've got other athletes that will be competing. Ulysses won't be there. But a nice, interesting graph to look at and kind of pick apart there. There you have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a like, comment below, let us know what you think. Do you like these type of videos? Auntie Liz puts a lot of effort into it, so go and give her a follow on Instagram. And as always, guys, stay strong.